It was supposed to be the happiest night of Daniel Carter's life, the night he finally introduced the woman he loved to his parents and announced their engagement. The chandeliers of the Carter family estate glittered like frozen diamonds, a perfect backdrop for celebration. But as Daniel held Maya's hand and stood to make the announcement, the air in the room shifted. Smiles froze. Forks clinked against porcelain and then stopped. His father's face hardened, his mother's eyes widened with dismay, and silence swept over the dining hall. "My parents," Daniel said, his voice strong despite the tension. "I want you to meet Maya. She's the love of my life, and I've asked her to marry me." Maya smiled nervously, squeezing his hand. She was graceful in her simple dress, her dark skin glowing beneath the warm lights. She radiated confidence, but inside her heart pounded. She felt the stares, the sudden weight of being measured and found lacking by people who didn't even know her. His father, Richard Carter, cleared his throat. A man whose wealth and influence reached across the city, Richard had built an empire on oil and investments. He prided himself on control, over his business, over his image, and over his family. Now that control slipped as he glared at his son. "Daniel," Richard said coldly, "I thought you had more sense." "Excuse me?" Daniel's voice cracked slightly, but he stood tall. Richard gestured toward Maya, his lips curling in disdain. "This is not what we raised you for. Our family name, our legacy, deserves better." "Better?" Daniel's hand tightened around Maya's. "You mean someone who looks like you? That's what this is about, isn't it?" His mother, Eleanor Carter, interjected, her voice laced with false sweetness. "Daniel, darling, we're only concerned about your future. People will talk." "They always do." "You don't want to make life harder for yourself." Maya felt her throat close. It was no surprise, not really. She had seen the stares when Daniel took her to high-end restaurants, the whispers when they walked together in public. But hearing it laid bare from the people who claimed to love him, it was a wound she hadn't prepared for. Daniel's voice rose. "I don't care what people say. I love Maya, and nothing you do will change that." But Richard Carter was not a man who accepted defeat. That night, as guests filed out and the air grew heavy with unspoken words, he exchanged a look with Eleanor. Their son thought love could conquer everything, but they had resources, influence, and the determination to erase this girl from his life. The first attempt was almost laughable in its arrogance. A week later, Maya received a private message asking her to meet Eleanor for tea. Out of respect for Daniel, she agreed. The cafe was quiet, the porcelain cups delicate, the air filled with the faint scent of lavender. Eleanor smiled too widely, her voice sugar-coated as she slid an envelope across the table. Inside were checks. More zeros than Maya had ever seen in her life. "Walk away," Eleanor whispered, leaning in close. "Do the right thing. Leave Daniel before you ruin him." Maya's eyes burned. She pushed the envelope back. "Your money means nothing to me. I love your son, and unlike you, I won't betray him." Eleanor's expression cracked, revealing the venom beneath. "You'll regret this." When bribery failed, the Carters turned to defamation. Rumors spread like wildfire in Daniel's social circles. Maya was called a gold digger, accused of manipulating him for his inheritance. Old acquaintances whispered that her family had a criminal past, that she was untrustworthy, unworthy. Daniel fought back fiercely, confronting friends who spread lies, defending Maya at every turn. But the more he defended her, the more isolated he became. Invitations to elite gatherings stopped arriving. Business opportunities dried up. It was as if invisible hands were erasing him from the privileged world he'd always known. Maya begged him to let her go. "Daniel, I can't watch them destroy you because of me. Maybe it's better if—" "Don't!" Daniel interrupted, his voice breaking. "Don't even say it. You're my life, Maya. Without you, all of this, money, status, legacy, it means nothing." The Carters, however, were not finished. If lies could not drive her away, they would resort to humiliation. At a lavish charity gala, Maya was accused of stealing a diamond bracelet. Security guards cornered her, guests gasped, and cameras flashed as Richard Carter shook his head in mock disappointment. But Daniel refused to believe it. He demanded the security footage, threatening to call the police himself. Hours later, the truth emerged. A servant had slipped the bracelet into Maya's purse, acting under orders from someone higher up. Though the evidence was hushed, whispers still clung to her name. The damage was done. That night, Maya wept in Daniel's arms. "I can't do this anymore. They'll never stop. They'll destroy both of us." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then let them. I'd rather lose everything than lose you." The final blow came when Richard summoned his son to the family estate. Sitting in his mahogany-lined study, Richard delivered his ultimatum. "You have a choice, Daniel. Leave her and you inherit everything. Stay with her and you're cut off. No trust fund, no position in the company, no protection from the world you've grown up in. You'll be nothing." Daniel stared at his father, his chest tight. He thought of Maya's smile, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she held him when he doubted himself. He thought of a life without her, empty, sterile, chained to his parents' approval. "Then I'll be nothing," Daniel whispered, "because I'd rather be nothing with her than everything with you." Richard's face went red with rage. Eleanor gasped. "You ungrateful boy!" But Daniel stood unshaken. "No, I'm finally free." Their world collapsed overnight. Daniel's bank accounts were frozen, his name stripped from the company. Friends turned their backs. He and Maya moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, far from the glittering halls of wealth he had once known. It wasn't easy. Bills piled up. Daniel took odd jobs while Maya worked double shifts. But through the struggle, their love only deepened. For the first time, Daniel felt alive, no longer a puppet of his parents, but a man who had chosen his own path. And then, the twist neither expected, the Carters' empire began to crumble. The servant who had planted the bracelet came forward, exposing the scheme. News outlets seized the story, and soon the Carters' racism, corruption, and cruelty were laid bare for the world to see. Investors pulled out. Charities severed ties. The family's once untouchable reputation shattered like glass. Neighbors who once envied them now whispered in disgust. Their names became synonymous with hatred, their wealth powerless to shield them from disgrace. Meanwhile, Daniel and Maya, though living modestly, thrived in love. Friends who valued them for who they were, not what they had, surrounded them. Their wedding was small but overflowing with joy, every smile genuine, every tear shed from true happiness. As they exchanged vows, Daniel glanced at Maya and whispered, "We broke their chains." And in that moment, they both knew they had won. Love is stronger than hate. No amount of wealth, power, or prejudice could erase that truth. Daniel and Maya's story was not one of loss but of liberation. The freedom to love boldly, to live honestly, to choose each other above all else. And as their journey reminds us, prejudice can destroy reputations, but it cannot destroy love. If you believe in love's power to overcome hate, please like and subscribe for more stories that break the chains of injustice.